Hey guys, Dave from Erie Rackets. As you saw the title of the video, I just want to discuss a little bit about some things that are going on lately. And again, this isn't intended to create any kind of arguments or battles over YouTube or on the Facebook groups or anything like that. Other people have been pretty free and easy on their opinions on this topic, so I figured, talking to a few other people, I figured that I would go ahead and do this video, and I'm going to talk about the synonymous or the famous or infamous, whatever you want to call it, beginner species. And it's going to be broken down into two, maybe three little sections of the video. It's just going to be one video. Hopefully I keep it under 15 minutes. So what is a beginner species to me? We'll start that way. And again, this is going to be my opinion. And I know it's opinion of a bunch of other people that I've already talked to about this. So this isn't just coming from me. This is coming from other people. You can see my microphone here. A beginner species to me is, or a person that's asking about a beginner species. If somebody asks about a beginner species and somebody recommends an old world species, shame on you. Flat out, shame on you. People aren't asking for a beginner species to be told, go get whatever you want, go get an OBT. I can't stand that when people do that on the Facebook groups. When someone says, what's a good beginner species, and someone types OBT and thinks it's funny. Most people are asking for a reason. They don't know, and let's applaud them for actually asking before they go get it. Because you have too many people that just go and buy a spider and then ask the questions later. And those are the people that are buying with these things instead of with this thing. And a lot of people don't know. A lot of people have never kept tarantulas before, don't know, don't understand the necessities of keeping them and what's involved with keeping them, both new worlds and old worlds. So beginner species to me is I'm on the fence with handling. I could care less one way or another. I know that people that I can't remember how that word is. That's one of my worst words ever saying. But taking your emotions and impressing them onto the spider. Anthropomization is wrong. Because the spiders don't get anything out of handling at all, period. It's all for you, 100%. But I don't really particularly have a view on, you should or shouldn't do it. I'm not a huge fan of it. But that's a whole nother topic. What I'm saying is that people that are asking these questions on the groups are saying, what's a good beginner species? And most of them are asking it because they want a spider that they may be able to hold. One that's docile, one that's visible. New keepers don't want a species that's going to be buried all the time, that they don't see it. So that's the quickest way to become bored of the hobby. That's why I'm not a huge advocate of a Grammostola rosea portery as a first spider, even though most of us did that. They're rather boring for the most part. There's much better options in the Grammostola genus than a portery or a rosea. As slings, they're great. Mine are all over the place, but as they grow and get older, they don't move a lot. They're pretty much sedentary and they just stay. And that could be, same thing with the Faunopelma and same thing with Brachypelma. But they're more docile. They're more receptive or tolerant, I should say, not receptive, but tolerant of you being around them. And to me, that's the basic definition of a beginner species, is something that is more tolerant of you being in their atmosphere, being in their enclosure, removing boluses, watering, grabbing the water dish to clean it out, putting it back in without them coming to attack you. Or defending their territory. I shouldn't say them coming to attack you, because they're not really aggressive. They're defensive of their home and their territory. And all spiders are that way for the most part. But, when have you one time ever heard a Euatha species red that someone says is not the most docile species out there? Something that you could handle, you could put in your hands. I have one, Cat has one, Petco now has one. Bunches of people have them, and they're like little tiny puppy dogs. You could put them in your hands and they'll just crawl around. They really could care less what you are. You can't do that with a lot of other spiders. Grammostola pulchripes, for the most part, most of them are that way. Grammostola pulchras are somewhat tolerant of people getting around them. Euapelis campistratus is another one that's very tolerant. So when someone says a beginner species to me, and when I say a beginner species to me, it's something that's going to give you experience in the hobby that is a little bit more easy to work with, a little bit easier to deal with, one that's more bulletproof, so they're more forgiving of husbandry errors. It's not a, there's no rush to get into old world species. There's no rush to even get into some of the more quicker, or I don't want to say lethal because they're not lethal, more apt to be defensive species in the new worlds. One of the biggest things that I've been hearing lately, and I think this is just absolutely ridiculous, and again, I'm not trying to create any kind of wars, and I'm not trying to, call anybody out on this, but the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in the last handful of days is that, how is this new world Rosea or Grammostola pulchripes or whatever going to bridge me to an old world species? Because they just sit there and do anything. Now, yeah, you know what? You're right. A lot of them just sit there and do anything, but what do your old worlds do? What does a Cereopagabus lividus do? What does a Plenibus muticus do? Nothing. They live in a pile of dirt with a hole. That's it. What do they really do? The only time you got to worry about them is when you're rehousing them. Okay, so why not get some experience dealing with a spider that's out all the time, a Grammostola pulchripes that's more visible and out all the time. Even something a little bit more aggressive, not aggressive. I don't know why I always want to say aggressive, because I don't like that word. Something that's a little bit more testy, like a Nandu chromatus or a Canthoscuria geniculata, Lasiodora paribana. Something that's a little less tolerant of you being in their area. Those, to me, when you're starting to work with those species, you start to read body language, posture. You're learning a tarantula. You're not just learning that species. You're learning your experience and your handling abilities and your husbandry abilities of tarantulas, period. So you working with a Lasiodora paribana for 6 months before you decide you're going to get an old world species is a perfect bridge to that, because you're gaining that experience. No, there's no difference. I'm telling you right now, there is no difference between an old world and a new world as far as motion, movement, and just normalcy. They act the same. That Poecilotheria, everyone is so scared of Poecilotheria. And the reason is because they're a little bit more potent in the venom. But they're babies. They hide most of the time. You could scare them away much quicker than you're going to scare away a Nandu chromatus. Again, Cereopagabus lividus, if you give it 6 inches of dirt, you're not going to see it. It's going to wait till you feed it and something goes down in the hole, and it's going to grab it when it gets down there. So what are you really bridging? What are you trying to say that there doesn't necessarily need to be a bridge, and this sedentary species is not bridging me to what? What are they bridging you to? People are advising to buy spiders with whatever color and whatever temperament that you want. Why shouldn't you be able to go out there and buy whatever color spider you want? You can, I mean, anybody can buy whatever they want. It's their money. It's their dealing. But I can tell you what, as far as me being concerned, and I know a bunch of people that I've talked to recently that do these kind of videos feel this way, that me being in front of this camera and me talking when I'm not in front of this camera, giving you advice, I don't want to give you advice that you're going to go out there and do something that you're not ready for, and something happen in your home. Whether, let's just use a Poecilotheria metallica, for instance, because that's that blue spider that everybody just adores. So I sit back and I say, oh, you know what? Go buy whatever you want. Go buy that spider. It's okay. You've only been doing it for 2 months. It's okay. Go buy that spider. You go to the Repticon or Tinley or wherever it is you go, and you buy this nice, beautiful 2.5, 3-inch blue Poecilotheria metallica for 150, 160 bucks. You bring it home in this little deli cup. You got this nice, beautiful setup for it. Now, how do you get it in there? Because you've never dealt with a spider before. How do you get it in there? You don't know. So, you know what? It's a spider. What's it going to do? So you open up the lid, you start poking around, and it takes off on you. And now it's loose in your home. Now you either got a pissed off wife, or you got a pissed off husband, or a pissed off roommate, or you may have a little child in the house that now is at risk to get bit. Dog, cat, whatever it may be. I want to make sure that people are smart about what they buy and why they buy it. I don't think that there are people out there that just buy because it's an adrenaline rush. Don't get me wrong. I know hundreds of people in the hobby that are that way. This hobby is an adrenaline rush for them, and they just have to get that potent thing, that thing that has the possibility of really screwing with your day if you get tagged. So I just, again, I want to reiterate the fact that if you don't like the term beginner species, then let's call it experienced species then. Let's call it something that you're gaining experience in the hobby, feeding, watering, cleaning, rehousing, before you decide that I'm going to go get this beautiful Poecilotheria or this beautiful, nice 3-4 inch Chilobrachys fimbriatus or this beautiful orange female Pteronochelys marinus. And next thing you know, the thing's loose in your house. Or even worse, well, not even worse, or you don't want to rehouse it. You're scared to death of it now. So now you're afraid to open it. You're afraid to feed it. Stuff starts building up in there, boluses. Now you start getting stuff like, grain mites and gnats and possibly mites and a bunch of other stuff, that phorid flies that could kill your spider in the end, phorid flies. The other things really aren't that bad. Ants, because you're too scared now to do this, because you never sat down and took that time to learn the hobby. Not learn, again, researching all you want. Watching my videos, watching Tom Rand's videos, watching Marilyn Moore's videos, watching Petco's videos, whoever it may be. Are you really gaining any experience? I mean, all you're doing is watching a video on how somebody else does things. My reaction time can be completely different to Marilyn Moore's or to Dave Scott's or to Tom Moran's or Petco's. The way I keep things is completely different. The way Exotic Slayers keeps his is different than ours because of where he lives. So he's got a little bit more risk, I think, of flight because of the way he has got to keep his mold down. So I'd be worried. I'd be more worried. And you've seen some of my videos where I'm a tad bit more cautious with things that I'm afraid it's going to get out because I don't want them to get out. A, for the spider, B, for my well-being, because if one gets out, you won't see me anymore because my wife will kill me. But yeah, I just really think that sitting back and thinking about what you're doing and researching all you want. Researching is just watching videos and reading something. There's no hands-on. I mean, how can you get hands-on experience with something unless you have it? And again, quick story before I end this. After my Rosea died, or Porteri, whatever it is, after that spider died, and then I got to Hensai, I started to really get back into this stuff again. I went and got 2 spiders in one day. I got Apolopa species Columbia large and my Carabina versicolor. Okay, so I kept those for about a week, and then I went back and I got into Vicularia. And the guy that works there at that store says, "Hey, I'm going to this Buffalo Expo. I'm going to bring back some stuff. Is there anything you're looking for?" Well, I didn't know much about him. I was like, no, there's nothing that I want you to get for me. So a couple days later, after the expo's over, I go in there and he's got a couple pokies, a Salmopaeus cambridgei. He had a Heteroscogia maculata, and he had a couple small slings of a New World species. I can't remember what it was. It was something like a Brachypelma. Might have been a Vagans or something like that, or maybe Lasiodora. But anyway, so I'm looking at the names of these things, and I pull them up on my phone, and Poecilotheria vittata, this thing looks cool. So hold on one second, and I got to stop this, because if not, it's going to cut off my time, and I'll finish this story real quick and then end it with that. Okay, back. So anyway, I'm looking at the vials. There's Poecilotheria sapusca, Poecilotheria vittata. I just love the whole thought of the ghost ornamental. The name kind of drew me in. The coloring drew me in. Those grays and whites and blacks. And I was like, okay, can I buy this spider? So I give him the $45 or whatever it was that it was. I bring it home. It's in a little 50-gram vial, and I was like, the spider's about 2 inches. It's like, it needs to be in a bigger home. So now I'm trying to figure out, how do I rehouse this thing? You know, I mean, I went on Arachnoboards. I read a few things about bite reports with pokies. I sure didn't want to get tagged by one. Even at 2 inches, I didn't want to get tagged by one. So I'm trying to figure out how to rehouse this, and it needed to be in a bigger enclosure. So I found something that was a little bit bigger. You know, it was bigger than a 32-ounce deli cup. It was square. It was tall. It's one of those enclosures that have like the pressure lids, you know, that you kind of push down and snap over, and the suction holds it in. Drilled holes in it, made this nice little thing, and I just took the vial, opened it up, and stuck it in there, and let the spider come out on its own. Took him a few days to do it, but he did it. After about a week, you know, I fed it for the first time, and it almost got out, and it kind of spooked me, because the day before I had to rehouse my Hopalopus species Columbia large. I did that in the bathroom, and she crawled out of her enclosure into the new enclosure, out of the tub, and around the bathroom a little bit. I was right around the toilet area. I got her back pretty quick. I actually just put my hand in front of her. And at that point, I had never touched a tarantula, handled a tarantula. Well, I did. I'm sorry. I handled the rose hair a few times when we first got her, or him. Well, her. Probably her. Just a few times, though. And it was just, you know, like crawl over my hand, put it on my leg, and let it crawl up my leg. I wasn't really holding it. So I put my hand in front of it. She crawled up on that, and I hurried up, put my hand back in the tub, and got her in her enclosure and threw the lid on it right away. Well, then the next day I go to feed the Vittata, and it almost got out, because when it was towards the top, I undid the lid, lifted it up, went to throw the cricket in there, and the movement of the air and the cricket itself, if you've ever fed a pokey that's hungry, it's on its side, they'll come up to grab it. Well, that's what it did. It came up to grab it, and it was like over the rim, and I was like, I can't deal with this. I wasn't ready for this, and I didn't want to harm the spider, and I didn't want to be afraid of the spider to the point where I was afraid to take care of it. I was afraid to feed it. I was afraid to remove old boluses. So I called the guy back at the store, and I said, hey, can I bring this back and trade it for that Faunopelma chalcodes? He said, yeah, absolutely. I said, I put it in a new enclosure. It's bigger. It's nicer. It's like, you can keep the enclosure, and I'll just take the chalcodes. And then I brought the chalcodes home. Ended up being a Faunopelma gabelli in the end. But so I waited about another month and a half, and I started dealing with the spiders a little bit more. I worked a lot with the Hopalopus species Columbia large, kind of get used to her movements, her attitude, because she was the fastest spider that I had. My Carabina versicolor was still small, about 3/4 of an inch. A little flighty, but it was more of a, I want to hide spider. The Hopalopus species Columbia large was, I want to bolt spider. So dealing with her, after about a month or so, I kind of felt a little bit more confident. And I went back, and I ended up getting that Vittata back. And what was funny is when I got it, it was full of flies. There were flies all over the place inside, and there were dead crickets everywhere. And the spider died about 2 months later. I really want to say that the flies that were in there were forward flies, and I don't know how forward flies work, if they lay eggs on the spider, in the spider, whatever they do, but it died, and I was pretty upset. So I called him, I talked to him, and he's like, I'm mad. He's like, the girls have been here, they were afraid to deal with it because it's so fast, and it's it was in a bigger container, it always wanted to come out all the time. So he's like, oh, come back and I'll give you the Subfusca instead. So he replaced it with the Subfusca. But the Subfusca kept that spider for 2.5 years. He matured into a male. But the whole moral of this story is that I thought I was ready, and I wasn't ready. And I hadn't had any old worlds up to that point. And it was more important to me, not only for, again, my safety, for my wife not killing me, but I didn't want a spider like that loose in my home. We had just one cat and a dog, and not that the spider would have killed either one of them, but most likely the cat would have killed the spider. But I didn't want to take that risk until I had learned, how to transport them properly, how to rehouse them properly, how to feed them properly, how to learn the basic stuff with Poecilotheria, how to tap the side to get them into that, I'm scared, I'm going to ball up in the pokey stance. Once I learned all that stuff, by talking to people that have had them before on how they deal with them, watching videos like Rob C, dealing with a lot of his pokey stuff, because he was really, really big in the Poecilotheria. So watching a lot of his stuff, really helped. There were a couple other people that I watched. I don't know that they do videos anymore. It's been a long time since I've seen them. But like Access Denied, I think that's his name. Watching how they did things and how they moved spiders from, container to container, and then me dealing with my New World species, especially a Haplopa species Columbia large, because she grew like a weed. So, and then the Nandru chromatus grew like a weed. So it was moving some spiders around that gave me that experience and that, confidence that I can deal with some old worlds. And not everybody has that. And I'm going to tell you, I would say 90% of the people that are in the hobby don't have that right away. They don't have that ability. I didn't have that ability. And I think a lot of people don't. And a lot of people would say, hey, what? My second spider was a Pteronochelys marinus. I got it after a month of being in the hobby, and I was fine. And you know what? There are people that can do that. But the vast majority of us can't. So being in front of the camera and putting myself and my information out there for everybody to see, I feel that it's the responsible thing to dissuade you from starting with an old world species. If you want to start with something a little bit more testy, something that's going to give you a little bit of an adrenaline rush, go to the Ephebopus genus, go to the Taponecenius genus, get a Psalmopoeus erminia or Psalmopoeus cambridgei. I'll say this again till the day I die. I trust my pokies more than I trust any Psalmopoeus erminia I've ever had. I've never had any pokey come rushing out of an enclosure. I mean, the Vittata in the beginning, that just over the lip, but that was after it caught the cricket, it started to crawl out. I've never had one try to burst through its cork tube, its webbing, anything like that. Generally with pokies, I just put stuff in there, they eat them. Sometimes I've tongue fed them, but not very often. My erminia, the last erminia I had, was insane. She had a cork tube that came up to he had a cork tube that came up towards the top. That's where he lived. When you fed him, you couldn't put the food on that cork because he would fly through that webbing as soon as he felt any vibration. And that spider was out along the side and then all around its enclosure 4 or 5 times. So I found erminia much more unpredictable than any Poecilotheria species ever. At least in my experience with what I've dealt with here. And I think I've raised now, 4 males, 4 male erminias. And the little one that I have here, I think it was 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4. So, please think about when you're doing these videos on what information you're sending out there. And are you doing this for the minority of people that can do this, or are you sending it out there for the majority of people that are going to watch this? I would just feel like crap if I gave you some advice and something bad happened. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. If one of my viewers came back to me and said, you said it's okay to go ahead and buy whatever I wanted, and I wanted that blue spider, and it got out and it bit my 6-year-old daughter. We had to take her to the emergency room, and she's been fighting, muscle cramps for the last 3 weeks, and she's been sick, and she's not been able to go to school, or she's missing soccer or anything like that because of something that I said. I would hope that anybody that's in front of this camera doing this would feel that same way. You don't have to be the one that puts on that Superman cape and says it's okay to buy whatever you want whenever you want. It's okay to, you don't have to go by the standard beginner species. And again, the choice in the end is yours. It's not mine. It's not my choice. But what I say in front of this camera to you, I'm hoping to give you the tools to be successful in the hobby, and not get bored with it, and be safe. That's the whole goal of this, is to be safe. So I'm sure that the comment section is going to get lit up like a Christmas tree down here. So please, tell me what you think. Either way, I want to hear what everybody has to say on this. And I looked at my analytics today, which is kind of funny because I've never done it before, but Dave Scott gave me an advice on an app and I was checking out the analytics, and I found that out of my viewed videos, only 59% of the people that view my videos are actually people that are subscribed to my channel. 43% or 41% or whatever it was are people that aren't subscribed to my channel. And I'm not telling you have to, but it would be nice to have a handful more. So, you know, if you're watching this and you like what's going on here, please, you know, hit the subscribe. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what you'd like to see. And again, this in no way was intended to start any kind of YouTube war on the Tarantula groups or Tarantula YouTube people. It was just something I felt needed to be said, and I know a bunch of other people that I've talked to, again, thought it needed to be said as well. So Erie Arachnid's here saying sayonara and have a great rest of your week. We'll see you soon.